Okay, so a little while ago, someone asked me a number of really good questions in the comments of another video, and as I wrote out my answers, I realized that it was starting to get as long as a script for a video, so I figured, why not just make it into one? So I'm going to be answering a series of 12 questions from Ken Liston that cover a pretty broad range of topics pertaining to Green Lantern. Some of these are really cool, and they give me an excuse to talk about a lot of different stuff that I may not have gotten around to otherwise. So let's jump in and have some fun. Question 1. A criticism about the GL mythos I used to see was that all the GLs were from the United States, so I thought it would be fun if in Elseworlds reality, the Lanterns came from different countries. For me, I would have Hal Jordan of England, Guy Gardner of France, John Stewart of South Africa, Alan Scott of Germany or Poland, Kyle Rayner of Mexico, Jessica Cruz of Honduras, Simon Baz of Lebanon, and Joe Moline of Italy. That could be cool, especially with the freedom and flexibility of an Elseworld story. It reminds me of Superman Red Son, where the driving force of that story was all about how the world would be different if superheroes weren't all localized in the same country. And the Green Lantern Corps was actually an extension of the United States military. It's part of the reason I wish the main universe would bring back Anya Savenlovich, a Russian cosmonaut who came out of suspended animation and served as a Green Lantern with Kyle for a couple issues. But yeah, the point is that a wider variety of locations and cultures will make things way more interesting, since it's not the same thing all the time. And if we can get a writer who's actually lived in those places themselves, it'll be even better since they know how to portray it with authenticity. Question 2. If you couldn't have Hal or John in the League, which Lantern would you have on the team instead? For me, I've always enjoyed Kyle's presence in the League. His style, personality, and experience brings a lot to the table. My other choices is Jessica, but I'd rather she be on the Titans first. Guy is obviously a fun choice, but his style and personality would distract the team too much. Joe, hell no. It honestly depends on who else is on the team. The nice part about having so many Green Lanterns is that they each have such different personalities that we can pick whichever one represents a quality that the rest of the League is lacking. If everyone is old friends who get along great, then maybe you want to throw in Guy Gardner to stir up some conflict. If there's already enough tension on the team, use Kyle Rayner, because he's friendly and laid back. If Wonder Woman is on the team, it might be interesting to add Jessica Cruz, since she looks up to Diana as a hero and mentor figure, and there's a lot that could come from that relationship. Question 3. If only one human could be a Green Lantern, who would you choose and which Corps would you have the other Human Lanterns join? My answer is a little obvious for me. Hal Green, Guy Red, John Star Sapphire, Kyle White, Simon Blue, Jessica Yellow, Joe Indigo. I love the Lanterns too much to put any of them in orange, though Kelly could be an interesting but sad candidate. I would honestly take any of them if there was a good enough idea for a story, but you're forcing me to pick one, so I'd have to say Simon Baz. His character has so much story potential that's been left on the table, and he rarely gets the spotlight without having to share it with other characters who overshadow him. As for the other Corps, I think it would be interesting to see Guy deal with the legacy of the Red Lanterns. He made some legitimately strong bonds with that group, and it ended in tragedy. I'm sure some part of him wants to try rebuilding the Red Lantern Corps, but those rings are a death sentence because of what they do to your body. So how does Guy properly honor their memory? Maybe he even develops a friendship with Supergirl, since she was one of his Red Lanterns and the only one of their group to make a clean break and return to the life she had before. Question 4. Would you rather have all the Human Lanterns be on the Green Lantern Corps or on different Corps? Before DC Rebirth, when Kyle was the White Lantern and Guy a Red Lantern, it was interesting, but I didn't like how detached and isolated everybody was. I prefer the idea that they are all part of the Green Lantern Corps and have the same level of powers. It's the style, personality, and experiences that make each Lantern unique, not how powerful or worthy they are. Keep them all green, just send them to different places and give them unique things to do. Assign 1 or 2 to Earth exclusively, let 2 of them patrol space, 1 can help train a new generation of recruits on Oa, put 1 on the Justice League, etc. Green Lanterns can go anywhere and fit into any genre of story, and each of these characters are such different people, there's no excuse for their stories to be anything but a diverse assortment of unique and fun adventures that each look and feel totally different. For example, I love the fact that we had both the Grant Morrison run and Far Sector happening at the same time, because one of those was a weird, high-concept cosmic story, while the other was a much more grounded, political detective story told through a sci-fi lens. It's not enough to just put all these characters in different books. The books themselves need to feel different too, otherwise we're not getting the most out of the concept of Green Lantern. Question 5. What do you think of the death of the Justice League? I'm guessing you'll talk about it in a video, but I'm personally mixed. I think it's hilarious that Thorne put in a whole year of comics to make John as important and powerful as possible, and then he probably dies immediately. I like the idea of the Trinity being taken off the table for legacy heroes to take over, but the future State Justice League lineup is the last thing I want. Instead, what do you want the team to look like? I think it's surprising, but has potential. The last time the Trinity went away, we got the year-long series 52, which gave the spotlight to a cast of B and C tier characters, and it was amazingly good. And honestly, there are enough great candidates in the DCU that even if the League falls, there's at least 1 or 2 waves of characters who could pick right up where they left off. In a world where we still have the likes of Zatanna, Firestorm, Mera, the Atom, Supergirl, Blue Beetle, Dr. Fate, Power Girl, and a big pile of Green Lanterns and Flashes to pick from, I think the world will be fine. And putting together another league that's bigger and more powerful than the last one would be really easy, too. Just let Nightwing and Oracle handle it. Barbara has everyone's contact info, and literally every hero in the DC universe likes Nightwing. He can be the field leader, and Babs can provide support from behind the scenes. Also, this is why you need the Justice Society. They're a second team on par with the League, and they come in real handy during situations like this. Question 6. This next one is mostly a rant about the current Green Lantern series, but there is a really good question in here that I want to answer. It's about Joe's unique ring that self-charges and doesn't rely on the central battery at all. So question 6. Why wouldn't Nemesini make more than 1 ring? You had 1 to 2 years. I doubt it would have taken that long just to make 1. You had all that time while Joe was in the city enduring. What were you doing? Just sitting on your hands? And why give it to some random human instead of one of the 7,200 experienced lanterns Koyos wouldn't bother checking? So Far Sector actually answers your question. The reason why Joe's ring doesn't draw power from the central battery is because it can't, since it doesn't run on the same type of willpower as other lantern rings. During a flashback in Far Sector, a Guardian tells Joe that there are different kinds of willpower, and the will to overcome fear is the most common kind, so that's what the Guardians decided to use as the basis for their core, since it guarantees the largest pool of compatible users. Joe's ring is fueled by the slow and steady stream of willpower it takes to fight against something every day, knowing full well that you'll only make a tiny bit of real progress in your lifetime, but you keep going anyway. That brand of willpower isn't about overcoming anything, it's about enduring. As a result, you can't give a ring like that to the rest of the Green Lantern Corps because they could never use it. If Joe and Hal switched rings, neither one of them would be able to do anything with the other person's ring because they're not compatible with the specific brand of willpower that each other uses. Question 7. If you could retcon anything from Green Lantern history, what would it be? In a similar fashion, who would you bring back to life? I would easily bring back the Blue Lanterns, the deceased Lanterns from this run, and possibly Katmatui and Lara. I would completely erase the entire history of Arisia before the Sinestro Corps War. If you don't know Arisia's history, you're lucky, because I wish I didn't know it. But basically, Arisia was introduced as this 14-year-old alien girl who was chosen to be her sector's Green Lantern, and she developed a massive crush on Hal Jordan, which he rightly shut down every chance he got. She even got this really bad, creepy justification that she's only 14 by Earth standards, and is actually 28 back home, because of how often her planet orbits the sun. It's gross, and Hal's not buying it, so Arisia used her ring to prematurely age her body to adulthood to try and make herself more attractive to Hal. And it works! And they immediately start hooking up. This comic directly calls out why this is so bad, but acts like it isn't. Eventually they break up, and she's stuck as a kid in an adult body, so of course she decides to become a model, because let's keep piling on the exploitation. Oh, don't worry, she's murdered eventually. The entire thing is a disgusting mess. She was brought back during the Jeff Johns run, and thankfully her past rarely comes up. These days, Aricia is written as an adult in both mind and body. She's almost never in the same room as Hal Jordan, and she spent a long time in the pages of Green Lantern Corps forming much more appropriate friendships and romantic ties that are actually healthy. Basically, her entire history, from her introduction to her death, is a toxic mess that's best forgotten. And everything after her resurrection has been pretty good, with the added bonus of it never really mentioning anything before she came back to life. So you may as well erase all of that and just let her be an adult who was recruited into the Corps and fought in the Sinestro War and go forward from there. Question 8. If you could have a team of 7 Lanterns across the emotional spectrum, who would you select to protect the universe in a new Guardians fashion? My team would look a lot like Kyle's original crew, but would replace Bleez and Monk for Guy and John as Red and Indigo Lanterns. I would also add Jade to represent the Starheart/Magic. My Green Lantern would be 2/6, one of my favorite alien Green Lanterns. She has a cool design, and she's the pragmatic, logical one that'll balance out all the other weirdos I'm about to put on this team. My Yellow Lantern would be Jessica Cruz, because in addition to being my favorite human lantern, I'm absolutely fascinated by what becoming a member of the Sinestro Corps means for her ongoing contentious relationship with her own fear and anxiety. I will take literally any excuse to get more of that storyline, so let's do it here. My Red Lantern would be Xylus Zox. He's the jaded, off-color funny one that'll keep things light while provoking everyone around him. My Blue Lantern would be Nicole Morrison, and if you don't know who that is, I don't blame you. After Blackest Night, a bunch of new characters were introduced to be hosts for the entities of the emotional spectrum, and Nicole was the host of Adara, the blue entity of hope. They gave her a brief backstory and set her up to become part of this grand cosmic mythology, and then dumped her after an issue and a half, taking Adara away from her and then never mentioning her again. And that feels like a tremendous waste of a great opportunity, because at some point we're going to need to rebuild the Blue Lantern Corps, and I can't think of a better candidate than Nicole, especially since there's never been an official member from Earth. The closest we've ever come are the times when Hal and Kyle each briefly wore a blue ring. My Star Sapphire would be Noel Ange, a character introduced early into the Robert Venditti run of Green Lantern. She wasn't a Star Sapphire for very long before losing her ring, but she did quickly realize what a potentially devastating weapon love could be, learning to manipulate the feelings of others as a way of attacking them. What interests me so much about Noel Ange is that we rarely get a new named Star Sapphire to focus on as a primary character. Counting her, I think there's only ever been 5? 6 if you want to count Wonder Woman. So I say give her ring back and tell more stories, like one where she's forced to work with this group. It'll build character. Now my Indigo and Orange Lanterns are both the same person, Larfleeze. See, I didn't want to just think about who my team would be, I wanted a reason they'd come together. So imagine this. Larfleeze realizes that he doesn't own an Indigo ring, so he goes out to get one by killing a member of the Indigo tribe. The ring attaches itself to his finger and begins to suppress Larfleeze's mind and personality the same way it does to everyone else. Only Larfleeze is too powerful, and his orange ring is fighting the effects of the Indigo ring, dampening its power but not fully breaking him free of his control. The surge of orange and indigo light get noticed by the other cores, who each send someone to see what's happening. That's how our entire group gets together, and they realize this is the perfect opportunity to finally neutralize Larfleeze. They just need more indigo light to fully suppress him, and decide to escort him across the universe to the Indigo tribe's homeworld, where he can be bathed in the light of their central battery and the process can be completed. Along the way, there can be all sorts of obstacles they run into, plus the ethical argument of whether or not it's right to force this kind of rehabilitation onto someone against their will, and the whole thing is a good opportunity to flesh out all of these characters while having a fun space adventure rooted in the mythology of the various lanterns. Question 9. If you could trim the number of human lanterns to 4 or 5 characters, who would you keep and who would you kill off or retire? I would easily keep Hal, John, Guy, Kyle, and Jess, but I would maybe retire Hal and include Jade or Kelly instead. I like the idea of a teen Green Lantern since Lantern representation is too limited to the League and adult Titans. So we're talking about Alan, Jade, Hal, Kyle, John, Guy, Simon, Jessica, Joe, and Kelly. That's 10 characters, and I have to cut the list in half. So right off the bat, I wouldn't kill anybody. I like all of these characters. Not equally, but I do like them all, and I wouldn't want to see any of them killed off. So we're strictly dealing with retirement here. Also, a big factor for me is my belief that one of the biggest creative weaknesses of mainstream American comics is the eternal status quo that's always maintained and always keeps us running in circles. I don't want to read the same stories over and over again, and I don't want to read about the same characters forever. With that in mind, Hal Jordan has been the star of more Green Lantern stories than anyone, and I'm personally more than satisfied with that amount, so Hal Jordan can retire. Similarly, Alan Scott has been doing this since 1940, and I love seeing him with the JSA, but if anyone has earned a restful retirement, it's Alan. Guy and John are in a unique position because both of them were forced to stop being Green Lanterns before and had to build normal lives for themselves. Guy opened a bar named Warriors, and John ran his Shining Light architecture business. Both of their lives got disrupted by the return of the Corps, and neither one of them has had much going on outside of Green Lantern work since then. I say let them go back to it. Maybe even keep them ingrained in the superhero community by having John design secret bases on the side, and Guy's bar can be a meeting place for heroes after hours. That leaves us with 6. Jade, Kyle, Simon, Jessica, Joe, and Kelly. Something that I've always wanted to see happen for a long time is for Jade to officially succeed her father. She's become Green Lantern before, but it was always tied to the Corps. If Alan's going to step down, he should pass his name to her, since she's already surpassed him in terms of mastery over the Starheart that powers them both. So I'd keep her around and officially pass the torch. Then there's Kyle, who spent so many years as the eternal rookie, the new guy just trying to keep up, and I absolutely love the idea of him having grown into the seasoned veteran, the most senior Lantern we have now that everyone older than him has retired. Kyle serving as a mentor for this new crop of rookies trying to figure it all out would give Kyle a unique role he's never had before while paying off his entire character arc, and I think it represents a wonderful opportunity for him. He stays. So now we're down to 4, and I need to cut 1. Simon, Jessica, Joe, and Kelly. Simon and Jessica both have a really unique relationship with fear that the other Human Lanterns don't share. Jessica has a daily war against her own crippling anxiety, and her ring acts as a perfect visual metaphor for how she's doing, while Simon is a Muslim superhero living in a post-9/11 America where a large portion of both the population and the government still look at him as someone to be feared. They're opposites, really. Simon lives in a world that fears him, and Jessica fears the world she lives in. Stories about dealing with fear have always been core to Green Lantern, and I think it would be a tremendous mistake to stop exploring these themes with these characters, so I'd keep them both. Which means it comes down to Joe or Kelly, and I have to cut 1. And I guess it has to be Kelly. Joe is already a well-fleshed-out character that I care about and brings something unique to the table in terms of her outlook on the world and her relationship to willpower, while Kelly is still so ill-defined. I'm interested in Kelly based on the potential of what she could be, while I'm interested in Joe based on what she already is. Ironically, Kelly's biggest problem is that she doesn't have enough character development, and she'll never get any if she's retired. So instead, let's just have her take some time off from being a superhero and maybe reapply in a year or 2. So to recap, I'd have Jade replace her dad, I'd have Kyle step into a mentorship role as the seasoned veteran, and I'd follow the ongoing struggles of Simon, Jessica, and Joe as they explore their unique relationships to the concepts of fear and willpower. And maybe someday Kelly can come back and get that internship she's always wanted. Question 10. Are the Green Lanterns better off with or without the Guardians? Personally, I preferred the DC Rebirth version, where John was the leader of the Corps while Ganthet, Sade, and the Templar Guardians were more there for help. Also, I prefer Mogo as the base of the Corps, not Oa, which has been destroyed and attacked too often. I think the Guardians are a resource that the Green Lantern Corps can't afford to lose. Not only are they incredibly powerful, but they're old enough that they know things about the universe that nobody else does. The problem is that being billions of years old has given them a perspective that doesn't mesh well with pretty much anyone else in existence, so they're incredibly poor team players, and they insist that they always know what's best. The Guardians are a tremendous pain in the ass, yet at the same time, you want them around for those moments where the Anti-Monitor shows up on Earth during the Sinestro Corps War, or the combined emotional spectrum entities decide to hijack Kyle Rayner's body. I guess we could always split the difference and just have Ganthet and Sayid, but for some reason that doesn't feel like enough. I think the answer is that the Guardians should stay, but their role should change. But I don't think they'd ever go along with an idea like that unless it serves a bigger picture agenda that everyone else doesn't see. Question 11. If you could retell an era of Green Lantern in a Marvel Ultimate Universe fashion, what would you choose? While I'd like to see a modern version of Kyle's story, his run is still pretty easy to get into. Instead, I'd do it for John and give him a proper origin story, an easy-to-follow run that isn't chopped across multiple books like the original. I know there's Earth 1, but I want something that's more similar and more friendly to readers who want to read the other Green Lantern books afterwards. You're right, a lot of these characters are recent enough that there wouldn't be much point in reimagining them in a more contemporary light. Ultimate Marvel takes older characters from decades ago and gives us a new version where they're young now, and their origins happen today. I do think that John and Guy could both benefit from having their origins cleaned up and modernized, and honestly, I think Kyle might be interesting too. A young artist struggling to make a name for himself in the heart of New York City is a very different experience in 2022 than it was in 1994. Plus, the experience of being someone in their late teens to early 20s is different enough now that it'd let us see a version of Kyle that gets back to the character's roots while also feeling wholly distinct. Ironically, Alan Scott already had an Ultimate Marvel version in the New 52 Earth 2, but that was quickly abandoned. We started to get this kind of treatment for Jade on the second season of Stargirl, but the show wasn't very interested in exploring its own modern take on Jennie-Lynn, even though I think her and her brother might be a pretty natural fit for a modern retelling. Two siblings separated at birth, tracking each other down as teenagers around the same time they develop strange powers, and then go to confront their superhero father who didn't even know he had kids. The concept is really strong, and a modern adaptation could actually end up being the best version of that story, since most of Jade and Obsidian's story has been scattered across team books and anthologies, and I think it would benefit greatly from being the sole focus that we can really drill down into. Question 12. If you could adapt any story into a movie or TV series, animated or live action, what would you choose? Personally, I would easily do the John's run in a trilogy, but probably have the first movie be half Emerald Twilight and half Rebirth, kind of like the Red Hood movie. And then the other two would be Sinestro Corps War and Blackest Night, or War for the Green Lanterns, which I love. Otherwise, I would like to see Kyle's run be adapted into a show. So there is a story arc that I think is uniquely perfect for a movie trilogy, and it would completely avoid the problems of trying to condense years of lore into too small of a space. I would adapt the Traitor storyline that ran through the series Legends of the DC Universe from 1999 to 2001. Legends of the DC Universe was an anthology-style series with a revolving door of main characters, telling new stories set all throughout DC's history. This series would take 3 issues to tell a Wonder Woman story, and then tell a 4-issue story about the Spectre, and then do 2 issues on the Atom, that sort of thing. And one of the things they did was tell a 6-issue Green Lantern story that was broken up into segments of 2 issues at a time, and spread out so as to maintain the anthology nature of the series instead of just making it a Green Lantern book for 6 months straight. The premise is that an evil alien, referred to as Traitor, comes to Earth and is confronted by the Green Lantern assigned to Earth's sector at the time. Each time he's defeated, he eventually comes back stronger, but it takes years. So the first 2 issues are about Traitor being confronted by Abin Sur in the Old West. The second 2 issues are about foiling Traitor through a classic Silver Age team-up between Hal Jordan and the Atom. And the final 2 issues are a knockdown, drag-out fight with Kyle Rayner as he has to stop Traitor once and for all. What makes this story perfect for a trilogy of movies is that it's already one overarching story that's split into 3 smaller stories that are connected and build on each other while still feeling very self-contained and distinct from each other. Those Ab and Sur chapters would just be a Western cowboy movie with some sci-fi flavor. The Hal part would be a classic superhero story, and Kyle's portion would be the big, bombastic, super flashy finale the whole thing's been building towards. It's a way to explore multiple settings and genres of stories, while also giving the spotlight to 3 different Green Lantern protagonists, and could be a lot of fun, especially if the production really leans into the fact that these all take place during different time periods. If you're curious about the story, it plays out over Legends of the DC Universe numbers 20 and 21, 28 and 29, 37 and 38, and at one point it was collected into a trade called Green Lantern Trader. And that's it! 12 questions answered. I personally have fun, and I hope you all did too. And thank you, Ken, for the questions. I'd love to know how all of you would answer these questions, so be sure to share your answers in the comments down below. Also, if anyone has anything they want to ask, then do what Ken did and put your question in the comment section of this video, and maybe we'll do another one of these. And if you enjoyed this, be sure to subscribe and follow Mosaic Comics on Twitter so you'll know when the next one comes out. Thank you for taking the time to watch. My name is Dan. We'll talk again soon.